I'm Paul Arthur. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we have lined up for you tonight. After backing down on the digital services tax, the Prime Minister threatens more counter tariffs on the U.S. Plus, the President of Iran announces it will no longer cooperate with the UN's Atomic Energy Agency. And Alberta appoints the first chief of the newly formed independent agency Police Service. Thanks for joining us. More tough trade talk today from Prime Minister Mark Carney. The Prime Minister says he'll boost Canadian trade countermeasures if a new trade deal with the United States isn't in place by July 21st. Canada and the U.S. are back at the bargaining table after U.S. President Donald Trump paused trade talks over Ottawa's plan to impose a digital services tax on multinational tech firms. But that was dropped just hours before it was set to take effect.
As I just said, it's a question of timing in terms of the date for the final negotiations and when the tax was coming into effect. And it doesn't make sense to collect tax from people and then remit them back. So it provides some certainty. And as I just said, negotiations have restarted. We're going to focus on getting the best deal for Canadians. We're making progress. There's more to do, and we'll keep you updated.
Now, Carney is meeting with leaders in the auto sector, which has been a key front in the trade war. Former Liberal Foreign Affairs Minister Lloyd Agsworthy has accused Prime Minister Carney of bootlicking when it comes to U.S. President Donald Trump. Agsworthy's scathing assessment first came after the NATO summit, where he accused Carney and others of bending a knee to Trump over defense spending. He also criticizes the PM for canceling the digital services tax that would have targeted American tech giants. He calls the reversal bootlicking in the hopes of getting tariff concessions from the U.S. Alberta and Ontario's environment ministers are calling for an end to federal policies they say weaken economies and don't benefit the environment. They have asked Ottawa for an urgent discussion around scrapping policies they call punitive, such as the Clean Electricity Regulations and Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. It comes as the country's environment ministers are gathered in Yellowknife for meetings over the next 3 days. Our nation celebrated its 158th birthday yesterday as Canada Day celebrations were held across the country. Millions wore red and white and waved Canadian flags, but at the Alberta Legislature in Edmonton, celebrations were mixed with talk of separatism.
Oh, it's a tough one. With everything going on, I feel I'm more for the separation movement and everything, but I don't know, it seems like if everybody could just sit down and talk and figure it out, it would be easy, but that seems to be the difficult thing to do nowadays. I'm all about being Canadian and everything, but on the federal level, it seems sometimes it doesn't know what they're doing, but the provincial's the same thing at a degree too, I guess. We're all kind of like that. Does anybody know what they're really doing?
For me, more important for me to celebrate Canada Day this year than others, as I think the idea that's being promoted, the separatism, is ridiculous. That's where we're a united country, and I think if you're trying to separate from that from Canada, you are completely undercutting who we are. And look at all the people here. Again, this is what Canada should be about.
And I'm amazed at the people and how much diversity there is. Canada Day is a day for everybody to come together. It's time to forget about everything. This is the time for us to celebrate Canada, correct?
Yes.
But you ask me tomorrow about separation, a whole different story, right? I'm not a fan of the Liberal government. And I would think the majority of Albertans are not. And to be honest, if they wanted to say separate and wanted my vote, they would get it.
Happy to be here and happy to be Canadian and proud to be Canadian and standing strong for Canada.
Nearly half of Alberta is under a heat warning as daytime temperatures are expected to hit upwards of 30 degrees Celsius. Environment Canada says the warnings are in effect everywhere from Lac-La-Biche in Alberta's north to Medicine Hat in the south. Heat warnings are also in effect in Atlantic Canada. Temperatures in parts of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island are expected to hit around 30 degrees today, but will feel even hotter with the humidity. Residents in affected areas are reminded to take shelter from the heat, drink plenty of water, and watch for signs of heat stroke, which include headaches, nausea, dizziness, thirst, and intense fatigue. When we return, we'll have more of the top stories from the West with Forum Daily West. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has named the officer who will be the first chief of the new independent agency police service. Smith says the IAPS will function as an independent Crown corporation under the new name Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, with its headquarters in Calgary, and will give municipalities an alternative to existing law enforcement options, including the RCMP.
Today, roughly 80% of Albertans are already served by local non-RCMP municipal police services, such as in Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, as well as the recently established police service in Grande Prairie, along with others. And I'm also happy to announce that we are appointing Satpal Singh Parhar as Chief of the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. Chief Parhar has the right mix of experience and leadership to steer this new agency. And his first responsibilities will be recruiting an executive team as well as building connections with the existing network of Alberta law enforcement organizations.
This is a rare opportunity for Alberta to build a modern, professional police service from the ground up. One that works alongside existing law enforcement partners, supports our communities, and helps strengthen public safety across the province. My commitment is to lead with integrity, to listen carefully, and to build a service that's ready to serve every part of Alberta.
Smith says this new service is not meant to replace the RCMP or any other police service. She says these sheriffs will work alongside existing branches of law enforcement to fill gaps and ensure that resources are used efficiently. One of the men convicted in the Coutts 2022 border blockade has been granted bail pending his appeal. Chris Carbert has been serving a 6.5-year sentence for convictions of mischief over $5,000 and possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. He, alongside co-accused Anthony Olnick, were acquitted of the most serious charge of conspiracy to murder in 2024. Both were denied parole back in April after the board determined they lacked accountability. On Monday, Calgary Justice Joanne Streckaff determined Carbert as a low risk to reoffend, saying he has demonstrated that there is no substantial likelihood that he will commit a criminal offense or interfere with the administration of justice. Since his sentencing in September of 2024, Carbert had 2 years and 7 months remaining in his sentence and is eligible for statutory release in June 2026, with his sentence to expire in April of 2027. Carbert can be released after appeal arguments that are scheduled to be heard in September. Addiction doesn't start with a needle or a bottle. It often starts with silence, stigma, and pain. Behind every statistic is a story, and behind every story, a person who is searching for hope. In response to the growing number of opioid deaths, the Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs brought in a professional who spoke to the Lethbridge community about the complex challenges of addiction and recovery and the importance of support and connection in the healing process. Our BCN's Heidi Echevarria has the story.
Treatments help provide tools that allow people to move forward. However, after treatment, continuous support is essential, and community connection allows for lasting recovery.
It's important to note that addiction recovery isn't just the absence of drug use or substance abuse. It's a systemic issue of kind of regaining the person back into community and healing different aspects of life.
Stigma doesn't only come from those who suffer from addiction.
So a lot of people, with the stigma of addiction think that people aren't productive, they're not willing to help out, they're scary, they're going to rob you or hurt you, and we're here to show that when people enter recovery and trying to do better in their lives, those aren't the people that they are.
Why stigma, the desire to escape from reality, and lack of hope are present in the minds of those who need help, addictions continue taking life. In 2024, there were over 7,000 apparent opioid toxicity deaths in Canada. The majority of those deaths occurred in British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario.
Okay, can I try? And he was like, yeah, man, let's go do it. And then, I went in the bathroom and he had a line of cocaine. I was like, oh, that's cocaine. This will be fun.
Hayes Green, at the 31-year-old man who came from High River, Alberta, escaping from alcohol and cocaine abuse. Green says he started using alcohol at the age of 12 and was already using hard drugs by the age of 16. In 2019, he arrived Lethbridge, where he wanted to start a sober life, but unfortunately, addiction took over, leading him to switch from alcohol and cocaine to meth and fentanyl. When I asked him if he would accept to begin a recovery process, this was his response.
I'm just not ready. I just know that once you go in, it's almost like jail. Like stigmas, no, it's the truth. Like once you go in, you can't leave. You can leave, but you know, for 24 hours you can't come back, right? So.
Convertis Group, one of the largest organic waste processing companies in all of North America, has required the AIM group of companies taking over their operations of a vast number of facilities across Canada. One of the sites included is the City of Lethbridge's composting facility at the Waste and Recycling Centre. The CEO of Convertis says the merger won't change current operations and contracts, but it will help achieve their sustainable environmental goals.
One of the things that we really did is we looked at what our environmental footprint is. And so we actually gave ourselves goals. We call it the dot on the horizon for 2035. And in that, it's, you know, to be a net energy producer because of our renewable natural gas. It's to have negative or zero negative impacts on any of our surrounding communities. It's to make sure that nothing goes to landfill. So these are goals that we've set for ourselves for 2035. And so I think obviously the AIM family will be part of those goals as we work towards those in 2035. And that's really increasing the sustainability footprint for not only our operating facilities, but also the municipalities and the cities that we operate in. It allows for more resilience in the industry. So AIM was a great competitor. We're a great competitor. We both have technologies. So I think us together really brings a lot of stability because unfortunately, as this industry's gone through its ebbs and flows, there have been some, I guess, to use the term, fly-by-nighters or people who got into this business and really struggled. And I think some municipalities got the short end of the stick, both in the U.S. and in Canada. And so I think with us and AIM together, I think that's going to really lead that going forward.
Convertis will lead operations at 19 sites in 3 countries, processing over 900,000 tons of organic waste annually. Overseas, the president of Iran has suspended that nation's cooperation with the UN nuclear agency. We get more from John Gambrell with the Associated Press.
The organization, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog and goes by the acronym IAEA, has been crucial in assessing Iran's nuclear program, particularly after Tehran's 2015 deal with world powers. Now, we don't understand exactly what Iran means by suspending cooperation. This announcement by Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian comes after Iran's parliament passed a bill that had language saying that this cooperation would be suspended until the agency would be able to guarantee the safety of Iranian nuclear sites and its scientists. So far, the agency doesn't appear to have received any official communication from Iran regarding this, and it remains unclear what the agency itself would be able to do, particularly in the wake of this 12-day war that Iran fought against Israel, that saw Israel and later the Americans bomb Iranian nuclear sites, disrupting its enrichment program. This may be part of Iran's pressure on the West. Iran is still trying to get some kind of deal with the United States across the line because it fears the sanctions that it faces now could only increase if a so-called snapback measure is employed at the United Nations, which could see UN sanctions reimposed on Tehran. But as of yet, there's no sign of any immediate negotiations between Tehran and Washington, and the IAEA is still trying to determine whether or not its inspectors will be able to continue their work monitoring Iran's program, which now has been enriching uranium to near weapon-grade levels.
The court case in the fatal stabbing of 4 University of Idaho students back in 2022 has finally concluded, with Bryan Kohberger pleading guilty today to murder. Prosecutors had struck an agreement with Kohberger allowing him to avoid the death penalty in exchange for him pleading guilty to murder charges and waiving his right to appeal. Kohberger remained emotionless as he pled guilty to the charges.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
Mr. Koberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought. Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Reaction from the victims' families is split, with some saying they're relieved they won't have to go back to court again. But others have expressed anger that prosecutors did not consult them before going ahead with the plea deal and losing the opportunity to see the death penalty administered. That is your Forum Daily West report. I'm Paul Arthur. Thanks so much for watching.